None of them were already on. You're never wrong, Rusty.
Just occasionally misguided. Sorry.
Hello, Mayor. Hello, June.
So strange.
Oh, get our numbers.
There's room for one more.
One more.
Never mind.
I'm gonna make an amendment.
Can't have an audience.
This hasn't identified the source. Well, there's terminology that we're going by, so community spread.
All right, we are live. Welcome to Bellevue City Council meeting. Wherever you are, you're not in the audience, but I know you're out there watching. It is 6 o'clock, March 17th. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and bless you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The pastor is not here today, so go straight into business. But first, I would like to say that we pushed out some media this afternoon, kind of an update on the coronavirus and how it's affecting Bellevue. In that report, we reported that there were 0 cases, confirmed cases of the COVID-19, but we just got notice. This is how fluid this is and how fast it changes. From the Sarpy-Cass Health Department for immediate release. We have our first positive case of COVID-19 in Sarpy County. A resident was exposed to an out-of-state traveler, gentleman in his 30s, and we'll probably, if you've come in contact with that, the Department of Health will track that down along with help from the DHHS. And you will be notified if there was any potential contact. So that's all I have right now, but just wanted to let you know that information has changed already.
Mayor, did they say what city in Sarpy County or just Sarpy County?
No, just Sarpy County at this point. Okay, item 3, call to order and roll call. Susan, would you take roll call? I'm sorry, you're not Susan.
That's okay.
Shirley.
Stinson,
Susan is out today, so.
yes. I'm sorry, Stinson,
Here.
Cook,
Here.
Shannon,
Here.
Preister,
Here.
Burns,
Here.
Welch.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we have nobody on the telephone, correct? Okay, Open Meetings Act, copy of that act is located on the rear wall of the council chambers. This meeting will be done in accordance with the Nebraska Open Meetings Act and also by attendance by wishes of the governor. Item 5, approval of agenda, consent agenda, claims, and advisory committee reports. 5A, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Shannon, seconded by Burns to approve the agenda. Do we have any amendments? Councilman Preister?
Mayor, I would move to amend the agenda, and I would do it with several items all in one motion. The motion is to amend the agenda to add item 16A, B, C, and D, individual items, to the consent agenda, and then to add emergency ordinance number 3992 regarding the pandemic sick leave to the agenda as item 13C, and to add emergency resolution number 2020-15 regarding a pandemic sick leave policy to the agenda as item 15A, and to add emergency resolution number 2020-16 regarding a pandemic finance expenditure procedure to the agenda as item 15B, and as per request, remove item 14B as it was withdrawn from the applicant.
And I will second that.
So we have a motion by Preister and a second by Shannon to amend the agenda as just stated. Bree, you okay with that amendment?
I am okay with that amendment, and we can speak to the specific items when we get to that on the agenda.
Okay. So we have a motion by Preister, second by Shannon. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Now we have a motion by Shannon, second by Burns, to approve the amended agenda. Any comments or questions on that? Please vote.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Item 5B, approval of the consent agenda. Items marked with an asterisk are approved where this item is unless otherwise removed. Councilman Cook?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion we approve 16B as was just amended.
Second.
Motion by Cook, seconded by Preister to approve.
5B, I think.
Did I say that wrong?
Yeah.
5B, sorry.
Approve 5B. Any comments or questions? Please vote.
I'm sorry, Mayor, who was the second by?
Second by Preister.
Thank you. All voted yes.
Thank you. Before we move to special presentation on 7, I just want to state for the audience out in the public that we are limited to the 10 people per room, and we have department heads in another room watching, so if there are questions, we can ask them as well. And I believe we have some public in the video room. So. Okay, item 7, special presentations. 7A, presentation of 2019 Tree Board Report. Councilman Preister.
Thank you, Mayor. Tom Maru is one of the tree board members I asked not to attend tonight, so I will just briefly read a few of the comments he made. And at this time, it's nice to get some good news. So the things that the tree board has done are, for Arbor Day, the tree board and community volunteers planted 9 trees total at the Eastern Nebraska Veterans Home, City Hall here, and Gross High School. Grant money totaling $1,100 for the events came from Green Bellevue and the Bellevue Garden Club. A week later, 12 trees were planted at McCann Park by the tree board members and Councilman Bob Stinson. I would also mention that the mayor and his wife planted the trees with us here at City Hall too, which we appreciated. 1,082 trees have now been planted on public land over 10 years by the tree board. Mulch was donated by tree board member and arborist Craig Kimball, valued at $3,000. This is the 9th year in a row that the city of Bellevue has been recognized as a tree city and community arboretum by the Arbor Day Foundation and the Nebraska Forest Service. The tree board has overseen Bellevue's Emerald Ash Borer Response Plan that is now part of the city master plan. Over 10% per year of our present 148 unhealthy ash trees have been removed by the Parks Department. The tree board has expressed our gratitude to those park staff working all winter on both tree removal and tree pruning. The tree board has extended the inventory assessment of over 2,533 trees on 49 city-owned parks property, including 229 cemetery trees, for a current city tree count at 2,760. They are 48% native species, and we hope to increase that with future tree plantings. They inventoried 221 annexed park trees in Oakhurst, Fox Ridge, and Blackhawk. Board member Joanne Langaby, with other members' help, has located every tree in the city parks and the cemetery by GPS. Notes are taken on the condition of each tree, and as new ones are added, they're added to the inventory. There's a cumulative 10-year financial contribution by the tree board to the city of Bellevue of $392,568. And I would just like to personally thank the tree board for all of their volunteer work and all of their contributions. And all the details are listed in the report that's posted in the agenda. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that report, Councilman Preister. And I'd like to thank them as well. And I'd like to thank you for the lessons on planting trees, because I went 57 years without knowing. Now I know. So.
You are a fast learner.
Just another quick update back to the coronavirus, and I'll just report this again, the fluidity of this. The person that was infected is not from the Bellevue area, so just want to pass that on to you guys and the public. 8, organizational matters, none. 9, approved citizen communication. We did not receive any. Item 10, liquor licenses. 10A, recommend approval of a special designated liquor license for the Bellevue Economic Enhancement Foundation for the Riverfest community event on Friday, June 26, 2020 from 5 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. and on Saturday, June 27th, 2020 from 7 a.m. to 12:30 should be a.m., correct? 12:30 a.m. at American Heroes Park, 2502 Payne Street. And I'll open that for public hearing, and if looks like we have Chamber President Kevin Hensel here, if you want to come forward and
Good evening.
tell us what you're up to.
Yeah, so at this point in time, we plan to move forward with Riverfest, which is June 26th and 27th, Friday evening, and then all day on Saturday. The liquor license request is for the beer garden typical of what's happened with this community festival each year. So the mayor and I had conversation yesterday, and we'll wait another 30 days or so and see where we are before we make any decisions about moving forward, but certainly need to have this in place as we continue planning.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open up the public hearing. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak for or against the Riverfest application? Please come forward. Seeing nobody and being notified there's nobody coming down the hall, we are going to close the public hearing. And we have any questions for Kevin while he's here? Okay, Councilman Preissner.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion that we recommend to the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission approval.
I'll second that.
Motion by Preister, seconded by Welch for approval. Please vote.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Kevin.
Great, thanks.
Item 11, ordinances for adoption, third reading. 11A, ordinance number 3966, request to annex sanitary and improvement district number 67, Normandy Hills.
Mayor,
Yep,
I'll
Councilman.
make a motion that we table both 11A and 11B until the May 5th meeting.
Second.
Motion by Stenson, seconded by Preister to table ordinance number 3966 until the May 5th, 2020 council meeting. And let's also, well, we've already done it, so we'll just take the vote on this one.
I included both of them when I.
Okay, you want to include both? So ordinance number 3970 will be included with the ordinance number 3966.
Mayor Hike will still have to do 2 separate votes.
Okay, so we'll
Okay.
take it back to the original. So we have a motion by Stenson, seconded by Preister, to table number 3966 until May 5th, 2020. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Councilman Stinson, is yours going through okay?
Well, it came up again, but I voted once.
There it goes. All voted yes.
Thank you. So the request to annex sanitary improvement district number 67 and number 242 have been tabled until the May 5th, 2020 council meeting.
Mayor, just to confirm, Shirley, do you need them to do the 11B separate, or did you get all of that in that one?
I have to have them vote separate.
Okay.
Got ahead of myself again. So we approved the ordinance number 3966 being tabled until May 5th, 2020. Item 11B, ordinance number 3970, request to annex sanitary and improvement district number 242, Cedar View.
And I'll make a motion that we table 11B till the May 5th meeting.
And I'll second that. Yep.
Motion by Stenson, second by Shannon. To table request to annex sanitary improvement district number 242 until May 5th, 2020. Any further comments? Please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 12, ordinances for public hearing. We have none. Item 13, ordinances for introduction, first reading. 13A, ordinance number 3990, request to amend section 5.26, City of Bellevue zoning ordinance regarding indoor and outdoor recreational facilities as a permitted use in the FX zoning district. Susan, could you read that ordinance?
Susan can,
Shirley?
An ordinance to amend section 5.26, ordinance number 3619, Bellevue zoning ordinance, relating to indoor and outdoor recreational facilities as a permitted use in the FX Flex Space Zoning District, to repeal such sections as heretofore existing, to approve an effective date of the ordinance, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Thank you, Shirley. That second reading and public hearing will be April 7th. 13B, ordinance number 3991, request to amend sections 5.24 and 8.03 City of Bellevue zoning ordinance to allow for the parking of semi-trailers, tractors, or any truck exceeding 8 feet in width or 21 feet in length as a conditional use permit in the BGH zoning district. Shirley, could you read that ordinance, please?
An ordinance to amend sections 5.24 and 8.03, ordinance number 3619, Bellevue zoning ordinance relating to parking of oversized vehicles in the BGH heavy general business zoning district as a conditional use, and Article 8 supplemental regulations relating to parking of oversized vehicles, to repeal such sections as heretofore existing, to provide an effective date of the ordinance, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Thank you. Ordinance number 3991 will have a second reading and public hearing on April 7th. (13C), emergency ordinance number 3992, an emergency ordinance to add section 14-11 to the Bellevue Municipal Code pertaining to pandemic sick leave, emergency ordinance pursuant to 16-314 and 16-405. So is there any discussion on that?
Mayor,
Councilman Shan.
I'd make a motion that we waive the 3 readings and approve this tonight because it's an emergency ordinance.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Shannon, second by Preister to approve ordinance number 3992 and waive readings and vote tonight.
Mayor?
Yep.
And just for the record, pursuant to 84-14-11, the public body does have the right to modify the agenda to include items of an emergency nature at a public meeting, which is what we were doing tonight. And then pursuant to 16-14-05, in the case of an infectious disease or other impeding danger, the city council has the ability to do this tonight without the publications and the 3 readings. So I just wanted to make that clear for the record as well.
Okay. All right, so we have motion by Shannon, second by Preister to waive the public hearing and vote tonight on ordinance number 3992. That's a separate motion. Please vote on the waiving the readings, or do you want to even go there?
You don't technically have to waive the readings because it's an emergency situation and we have the ability to do it under an emergency. But if you want to do it just to have it there, we can do that step and approve it and then approve the actual ordinance.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So we are voting. Please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. So now we are going to,
Do you want to hold a public hearing or not?
do we need to?
Was your motion to waive the 3rd readings and vote on it tonight, or was your motion to hold a public hearing tonight?
To waive the 3 readings and vote on it tonight.
Then we don't have to have a public hearing, and pursuant to the emergency statutes as well, we do not have to have a public hearing.
Then I'll make a motion to approve item 13C.
Second.
Motion by Shannon, second by Preister to approve ordinance number 3992. Councilman Preister.
Thank you, Mayor. It seems that we're just moving things and taking emergency powers, and we are, and it's for unusual circumstances. I would just ask our legal counsel, Ms. Robbins, if she would explain briefly just what this is that we're doing.
Yes, I can do that. So the emergency ordinance that is before you on 13C corresponds with a resolution that we are going to discuss, item 15A, and it's regarding a pandemic sick leave policy. It's an ordinance that allows the city and the city council to adopt the resolution for the city administrator to issue this pandemic sick leave policy for our employees in light of the pandemic that's going on. And it discusses, and we can talk about it more at 15A, but it discusses paid leave for full-time and part-time employees within the city. So this ordinance gives us the authorization to implement that policy for our employees.
Thank you. It is internal, it is for our employees, and it indirectly only would affect the public, so thank you.
Any other questions? Motion by Shannon, second by Preister. Please vote.
Mayor, just going to be one moment, please. I'm stuck. Give me one. What's that? You want to do roll call vote? Okay. Stinson,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Shannon,
Yes.
Preister,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Welch.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Item 14, public hearing on matters other than ordinances. 14A, approve event license application for the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce to have the Riverfest Community Event on Friday, June 26, 2020, from 5 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. on Saturday, June 27th, 2020, and on Saturday, June 27th, 2020, from 7 a.m. to 12:30 a.m. on Sunday, June 28th, 2020, at American Heroes Park. Any additional comments?
And I'm back.
Mr. Hensel?
No, I believe everyone's aware of the festival.
I will open it up for public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak in favor or against the event license application? Seeing nobody come forward. Councilman Cook, I'll close the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion we approve 14A.
I'll second that.
Motion by Cook, second by Welch to approve 14A. Any comments or questions? Please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 15A, resolutions. Emergency resolution number 2020-15, an emergency resolution regarding the implementation of a pandemic sick leave policy for the full-time and part-time employees of the city of Bellevue. Councilman Cook?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion we approve emergency resolution 2020-15.
I'll second that.
Motion by Cook, seconded by Welch. Comments or questions?
Mayor, do you want me to further address this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yep.
Shirley has the pandemic sick leave resolution on the screen. I think that also appears live for people watching. This is something that, if it's approved, our HR director, Ashley Decker, will push out to our employees tomorrow. This is just accounts for different situations for our city employees, both full-time and part-time, and it outlines reasons, things that would need to occur in order for them to get the sick leave on page 2. We really want to protect our employees because they are also protecting our citizens. And so this just gives us the ability, and the city administrator the ability, to have paid sick leave during this pandemic time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments? Motion by Cook, seconded by Welch to approve resolution number 2020-15. Please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 15B, emergency resolution number 2020-16, an emergency resolution regarding the implementation of a pandemic finance expenditure policy in the event the city council does not meet and city council business needs to be conducted.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve emergency resolution 2020-16.
Second.
Motion by Welch, seconded by Preister. Any discussion?
Councilman Preister is pointing at me, so I'll speak to this one as well.
All right.
This is also an emergency resolution. We worked in conjunction with our finance director, Rich Severson, and in the event that we are unable to hold city council meetings in the future, or not in the, that sounded indefinite, but in the future, that the city can continue operating and paying necessary and normal expenditures that cannot be held over until the next city council meeting. So this just allows our finance department to keep the city running in that aspect.
And speaking of that, we are planning on possibly going with a remote council meeting, so that's probably how we'll handle those in the future.
That's correct. So the governor issued an executive order this morning regarding a modified rules to the Open Meetings Act and the fact that we could appear telephonically or video conference, and we are working with our departments to get that up and running for the next city council meeting. So we're hoping that that will happen and we'll be able to have that meeting. But in the event that we are not, this is in place now.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 16, current business. 16A, approve and authorize the mayor to sign the contract with HOA Solutions to complete Phase 4 of the Bellevue Lift Station upgrades.
Mayor, A through D are already approved on the consent agenda.
Oh, sorry. Yep, correct. Didn't mark them. Move us to 16E. Accept proposal in order to carry out the condemnation, order to demolish and structure the structure located at 1503 Galvin Road South, Bellevue, Nebraska, bays 4 through 7.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm going to recuse myself on this item, and I'm going to leave the room because there are people that want to come in. So in order to keep us at 10, I'm just going to leave the room on this one.
Okay.
Just to be clear, and also because he has a conflict on this item.
Yeah. So you'll stay out for discussion and vote. So.
One of you may want to step in the hallway.
I will stay out and come in.
Yeah, if you could stay in the hall, that'd be great. Well, there's actually I don't see a public hearing, so.
Mayor, there's not a public hearing, and right now, in order to have any discussion, we would have to have a motion and a second in order to discuss the item. And if somebody wants to do that, then I can speak.
Councilman Preister?
Thank you, Mayor. I will make the motion on 16E that we accept the proposal in order to carry out the condemnation at 1503 Galvin Road South for bays 4 through 7.
I'll second it, but I have a question.
Okay, motion by Preister, second by Cook, for discussion now.
I'd like to make an amendment and open it up for public hearing. I believe we have two people that probably would like to talk. So that's my motion.
I'll second that.
So can you repeat that, Paul? I'm sorry.
It doesn't need to be an amendment, it just is a motion.
I'll just make a motion, we have public hearing.
Stinson, second.
Okay, so motion to have public hearing by Cook, second by Stinson, correct?
And I did also, before Mr. Loudner speaks, Mike Christensen is here as well and available to talk.
Okay. Please vote on the motion to open up public hearing.
Shirley, is that not coming up? Can we just do another? take a voice vote.
Yeah, we'll give her a second. She looks like she's concentrating. Cook and Stenson to open public hearing.
It should be allowing you to vote right now. With Pat's conflict, it's not allowing his computer to vote.
Do you just want to do a roll call vote, Shirley, on the motion to open public hearing?
Yeah. Stinson,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Yes.
Preister, Burns,
Yes.
Welch.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Motion carried.
Motion to open the public hearing is approved, and anybody in the audience wishing to come forward may do so now. Please state your name and address.
Thank you. My name is Don Loudner, Associate Attorney, Sadoff Law Group, 440 Regency Parkway Drive, Suite 132, Omaha, Nebraska. We represent the Main Street Properties LLC, which is the property owner here at 1503 Galvin Road South. The last time I was here before you was approximately 40 days ago or so at your city council meeting. I had informed you at that time that my firm had just been retained. We had just gotten involved, and we had discussed very briefly the request to continue the matter, to give us more time to put notice, to give notice to the insurance carrier of the adjacent property owner. I won't rehash the details. I think you are all fully aware of what this property is. And I understand that at that hearing, approximately a month and a half ago, you guys decided to vote to proceed forward with condemnation. It's my understanding today you're looking to approve some bids. I didn't get a copy of the bids. I didn't find it out there on the table either. I just saw the cover sheet. But I was here today to talk and ask again for the council to consider tabling this vote today to give us a brief continuance. Since we've last met, we did give notice to the insurance carrier. We received a formal notice to preserve the physical evidence, including the building, from the insurance carrier, from the adjuster that was involved. It's my understanding that the insurance carrier has also retained counsel. She is here. She'll speak just briefly after I am here. But it's a process. I was trying to convey that last time. It does take a little bit of time. We're asking, as I understand it, Mr. Christensen had issues regarding the safety, security. It's my understanding that barriers have been added, more secure barriers. I believe the safety or security issues that he was raising, the issues with the equipment in the parking lot, have been addressed. We believe that moving forward today, voting on the proposed bids has the potential for prejudicial harm against my client regarding his claim for the litigation against the neighboring property owner or the insurance carrier. It presents a significant waste issue. We're asking the court to consider giving us a little more time to get this thing through. It is a process. That's as simple and as blunt as I can make it. We're trying to move this forward. I have done nothing but try to move this case forward since about 45 days ago. So with that, I'll step out so another can come in.
Okay, thank you.
Unless you had any questions.
We might call you back in, so stay close.
Good evening. My name is Julie Jorgensen. I'm with Morrow, Wilnauer and Church. Address is 1299 Farnham, Suite 900, Omaha, Nebraska. I was in the other room listening to the previous testimony. I represent the property owners, Stoneweg USA LLC and Brent Village LLC. We were just placed on notice in mid-February with regard to this claim. And so we have had virtually no opportunity to investigate at this point. We have made efforts to reach out and retain engineers to go and inspect. There is no suit on file at this time, but there is a letter from council indicating that they place some of the blame for this on our client. Clearly at this time we dispute liability, and we are asking for the opportunity to go in with an engineer and inspect. A problem which we're seeing today is we need to get the engineer here to look at it. And there's obviously a lot of travel restrictions right now, and people are reluctant to go anywhere, understandably. And although there are not complete domestic travel restrictions yet, the engineers that we have spoken to are not at this point willing to travel on site until the situation with the coronavirus is a little bit more under control. So we would ask that any action with regard to this property be stayed until we have an opportunity to get our own expert and engineer in to take a look at it.
Councilwoman Welch.
What type of engineers are you looking to bring in?
At this point, we have been looking at civil engineers who also are familiar with various water systems.
So there are none that are local that could drive in? None in Omaha, none in Lincoln, none in Sioux City, none in Des Moines? Is that what I'm understanding?
At this point, the people that we have talked to have been not local. They have been from, right now we're looking at somebody from Minnesota. There's also, with using local engineers, there's often conflict issues or other people have spoken with them. So it is often easier for litigation purposes to use people from national firms that may not be local and may not have ties to the area. I'm not sure. I can't give you a rundown of everybody who has been contacted.
Because you have some of the best civil engineers in the city of Omaha.
Well, at this time, I'm sure other people may have retained them. This is we've been looking at a national firm, ESI, and their main civil engineer with the expertise in this particular area is out of Minnesota.
Okay.
Bree, or Councilman Preister, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming, and I can appreciate that you'd want to have a good quality assessment, but this happened way before the coronavirus, and there was certainly opportunity to bring engineers in way before it was even condemned. And to this point, I hope you can appreciate that right now we have an unsafe structure and that people could be put at risk.
Well, Mr. Priester, the issue is that we were just put on notice in February. I recognize that this happened before. I do not represent the owner of the structure that is being demolished. I represent the landowner behind, who has only just recently been put on notice. So there just simply hasn't been an opportunity to put that together. I believe that notice was received mid-February. My firm was retained in late February, early March. So it's not as if we've sat on this. It's just that we have not had an opportunity to do anything with it. And obviously all the various travel restrictions and quarantine and shelter in place things have come into place, which has deeply complicated the matter of getting somebody in quickly.
Are you saying you weren't put on notice, or the apartment, your client wasn't put on notice?
The first that I am aware, based on the information I have at this time, is my client was put on notice in approximately mid-February by counsel who just spoke.
February of 2020.
Correct.
And what was the date this building, what was the date of the damage?
The date of the, so just to clarify, also when you're talking about council, you're talking about Main Street Properties Council and not the City Attorney Council.
Correct.
Just want to clarify so that's
Yeah,
clear.
Main Street's counsel, the gentleman that just spoke is who I'm talking about, and I think that he testified to this, once they were retained, they did put people on notice, including my client and their carrier, but there simply has not been enough time to get an expert, react, get people in to actually inspect and take care of it.
Okay, and so just to provide a timeline, and I didn't bring all of my notes from the last meeting, but this was spelled out pretty clear, but the damage happened on May 28th, 2020. So we're sitting at approximately 9 months.
2019.
Sorry, 2019. May 28th, 2019. So we're sitting at approximately 9 months, give or take, since the damage occurred. The owner of Main Street Properties had notice at that time because Mike Christensen sent a letter regarding the public nuisance on June 5th of 2019, and the damage was not rectified. Nothing was done. Mr. Shannon testified at the last hearing that he did retain a private or a different engineer through a public adjuster, so there may be an engineer report out there already about the damage and assessment. So then this goes forward in January of 2020, and Mr. Shannon met with the city administrator, Mike Christensen, our chief building inspector, and Mark Albert, our community development director, with several contractors and discussed the demolition. And at that time, it was understood that that was going to move forward. And so we continued the hearing that was scheduled for January 21st, 2020 on the actual condemnation and demolition. So then that was set for the first, I believe it was the first meeting in February 4th. At that time, the city council approved the resolution, I think it was 2020-11, to condemn and order that the property be demolished by March 4th of 2020. So as an update, on March 4th, 2020, Mr. Shannon, by and through his attorney who was here, filed a complaint for injunctive relief in the district court in front of Judge Thompson on March 4th, 2020. He took no actions to move forward with the demolition as ordered by the city council during that month period. The judge did sign an ex parte temporary injunction on May 4th. That means ex parte is that it was issued without me having an opportunity to be heard or present my case. Judge Thompson, and that's normal. Judge Thompson then set that for hearing on, I believe it was March 9th. It was last Monday. On March 9th, on the temporary restraining order. And at that time, I had filed a motion to dismiss as well for it not being a proper complaint or complying with Nebraska law. At that time, at that hearing, Judge Thompson took it under advisement and on the next day issued an order dismissing the complaint and dismissing the temporary restraining order. So as we sit here today, you have had a district court judge look at it, and part of the argument was this notice to preserve letter that was sent. And Judge Thompson dismissed the TRO, the temporary restraining order, and the entire lawsuit. So at this time, we are able to move forward with the demolition because the city council has already declared it a public nuisance and a danger to the safety and well-being of our community. I will tell you that as of yesterday, I did receive a notice of appeal from Mr. Shannon's attorney that he's appealing the order to dismiss to the Nebraska Court of Appeals, and there's a briefing schedule set for that. But there is no injunction or anything from the Court of Appeals at this time, so we are able to move forward to protect our community. That was a really long update, but hopefully that's helpful.
And I would comment that it was not my case. I have no particular dog in that that procedural fight, but it was not dismissed on substance. I think you'll agree. The judge concurred that they used the wrong appellate process. So from our perspective, though, is I understand there's been a long timeline in terms of Main Street Properties, but we literally just received notice, and we just want an opportunity to investigate. We're not asking you to put this on hold forever. We're just asking for some kind of opportunity to investigate. And we would ask for that reason that the demolition be put on hold for say 60 days. So we have an opportunity to bring somebody in to inspect the damage, to inspect the buildings at issue as they sit here today.
I won't be as long this time, I promise. Mike Christensen, our chief building inspector, is here, and I think that he does want to talk. And maybe Mike can talk. There are waiting periods for the state of Nebraska for after you obtain a demolition permit, and he would have a better idea of timeline for when demolition would even occur. So maybe it would be helpful for Mike Christensen to come talk about that, because realistically, I don't know what that timeline is, and maybe it is 30 days by the time demo would actually occur, and you would be able to go in and obtain that information even though we're moving forward. So I think that information could be helpful for Mr. Christensen.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor. So what is I'm not understanding the need for your investigation. What is the reason that your client wants to investigate this?
Well, because Main Street Properties because Main Street Properties has sent a letter to my client indicating that they believe and they are making allegations that my client is somehow at fault. So at this time, there is no suit, but if we are able to adequately defend the suit, we have to have an opportunity to investigate the substance of the allegations. And to do that, we need an expert to come in and look at the structure and make determinations with regard to the allegations that they're making.
So the property that is scheduled to be demolished is leaning towards the fact that it's your client's fault that this all happened, and by given the opportunity to investigate it, you can say, yes, it is, no, it isn't, and then if it's demolished, then you don't even have a chance to say, yes, it is, no, it isn't, and could be subjected to a lawsuit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct. There would be no evidence for us to look at, often called a spoliation issue.
Mayor, may I?
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Did Mr. Councilman Price to ask a question here?
Just, if you would please, in addition to stating and saying your name, would you please sign the sheet that I believe is
yes.
there?
I
You don't have to do it right now, but before you leave.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, Bree.
I was just going to ask if you were aware of the fact that on May 29th, 2019, after the event happened the day before, that some demolition had already occurred on the property and items were removed. There were railroad ties in the back that were removed, the trees cut down. There's already been a change in the structure since the damage has happened. And I didn't know if you were aware of that, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
In looking through the minutes of the meeting, I did look to see that there were some stabilization type of activities that were undertaken. It looks like it was only a certain percentage of the building. So from the perspective of our engineer and our client, we would still like an opportunity to look at it. And because what was done was somewhat detailed in minutes and hopefully also in Anderson's records, we will hopefully be able to reconstruct that way about how it stands.
Okay, and then I have one question. You had said, is it my understanding that Main Street Properties did not make a claim against your client until February, mid-February?
That is correct. I believe their letter was dated.
It was February 5th. It was the day after the council meeting order.
Yeah, they had a letter on February 5th. By the time it was received and processed, I believe that official notice and acknowledgement of the letter was February 14th.
So can you say your client never heard from Main Street Properties up until that point? Or
I can't unequivocally say that no one from the client heard from them because I don't know that at this point. I can tell you that there was no claim letter. There was no one in authority put on notice, to the best of my knowledge.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Welch.
Has an engineer been hired yet?
We do have somebody that we have, I'll say, potentially retained, obviously with the travel restrictions, and as you said, we may have to consider somebody closer or somebody willing to drive in. We do have an engineer that we have spoken with, and right now the travel issues are sort of holding him back. On a normal case,
So
where we wouldn't be under quarantine, he would probably be able to fly in a couple of weeks, but that's,
But you're saying he's in Minnesota, right?
he's in Minnesota, yeah.
And we're talking Minneapolis area, hypothetically?
I can't remember exactly his base of operations. It's not Minneapolis. Hang on just a second. It's in Plymouth, Minnesota, which I'm not sure exactly where that is.
Okay, but typically, if that's around Minneapolis, we're talking a 5-hour drive. There's not flying that's needed, and from what I understand, there's no quarantine on driving in between states at this moment. I guess
A lot of companies are telling their employees they can't travel though, so that could be what he's tied up with. But what I'm hearing is we don't have a time frame. We're being asked to wait until the coronavirus dissipates, which it's probably not going to be 30 days. And,
Well, I'm sorry, Mayor. I was going to say, what we would ask right now is 60 days.
Mayor, I would ask that we have Mike Christensen come in and give us the outline of the projected time. And it's up to the city council, obviously, what they want to do with that. But I mean, it's already been declared, it's already been ordered, and maybe Mike can provide a timeline and they can get that achieved in that timeline.
Okay. All right. If you just hang close.
Sure, I will step back into the other
One more
room.
question from Councilman Cook.
I want to ask you 2 quick questions.
Okay.
The company that owns the apartment complex,
Yes.
where are they based out of?
And I will tell you, I was just retained, and I'm honestly not positive at this
Are
point.
they local or?
I'm not positive exactly where, because there's a parent company as well as a local LLC, and I cannot tell you for sure where they're based out of.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Christensen, if you can hear me, could you come in?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So we're looking at the time frame as to if this were to pass tonight. Is that what you're? So just to assure that all the disconnects have taken place, the chosen contractor will contact the gas company, the water company, the power company, go through all the regulations to assure that everything is disconnected before the demolition would take place. That's going to take approximately 10 days in itself. At that point, when they have all that information gathered, they will come in and apply for the permit. Once they have the permit in hand, they will register for the state of Nebraska just to ensure that there's another 10-day notification in case the state would want to come down and inspect the building for any reason, for asbestos, et cetera. So you're looking at approximately 3 weeks before the machinery will even move into place.
Mike, is that 10 business days or 10 calendar days?
It's a 10 calendar day wait. Yeah.
Okay.
But you're looking roughly at about 3 weeks before the equipment would move on site.
Councilman Cook.
Mike, have you had any contact or any meetings or anything with the apartment building on-site managers or since this all started?
No, just the first day of the flood on May 28th, there was a brief conversation with one of the managers on site, and that consisted of their maintenance person placing some sandbags on the drive.
Would it be fair to say, Main Street obviously had damage to their building. Was there obvious damage to property that belonged to the apartment complex?
From the structure?
No. From whatever's behind the structure, is there obvious damage on someone's property and that property would belong to the apartment complex?
Sorry, can I interject with the obvious question? I guess I would just like clarification on that. 'Cause
Well, what I'm trying to get to is that we have an issue where it happened back in May of last year. And my concern is every time we have a meeting, people come in here and say, I was just hired and hold on everything for me. And now we have someone else comes in here, I was just hired and hold off on everything for me. I guess what I'm trying to point out here is we have obligations by property owners to address issues on their property. And not when we wait from May 28th, I think, we had a meeting in January and, you know, stuff like that. So, I mean, it's frustrating that we sit here. I've driven by that place, and now it has been a couple weeks, but I feel very confident a very young kid would have easy access to either the front side or back side to get in there.
I would agree.
And it's frustrating for me to sit here, and every time we have a meeting, everybody's in here, pull back the reins, whoa, stop, give me more time. What happened with things when they happen in May and June and July, and now we're at, you know, March 17th? And I just, more of a comment of property owners have a responsibility to resolve issues on their property, not just because the city jumps in and wants to take action and stuff like that. So for me personally, I'm getting frustrated because I think people know what they need to do to get done, but because no one's back behind them pushing them, they push it months and months and months and months out. And then when the city's sitting here trying to consider a motion to condemn a property, everybody wants us to stop something that's already been probably almost 9 months out. So thank you.
And Paul, I think he kind of addressed what you were asking. You were kind of, you know, would the apartment complex know that there was damage to their property? And I think the answer is yes, because there was a manager on site the day of sandbagging it and aware of it. And there's also some orange fencing back there. So it's something that whether they were officially put on notice in February or not, there was notice that something was going on. And so I would agree. And I think he kind of answered that without answering the direct questions.
Councilman Stinson?
I just have a question on when we made this motion 30 days ago or whenever it was, we said that had to be sealed off to your approval and stuff. I've drove by there a couple times up behind there, taking a look. Was that fencing okayed by you? Just, it looks pretty flimsy to me, and anybody can pretty much get in there still that wants to get in there.
Yeah, there's still access in the back that kids could actually squeeze through pretty easily.
Okay, did they come to you for approval after that was?
You know, I think the main concentration was put forth in the front of the building to pick up some of the debris and put some orange fencing in the front and some barricades. There wasn't any attention paid to the back.
Okay.
Councilman Prester?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Christensen. I would just add a question about the security. You, as the chief building inspector looking at that building, do you feel comfortable with the condition it's in and the way that it's open currently for protecting public safety and public well-being?
I do not. I feel that it's set long enough in the condition that it's in with bare minimum security around it. And it's just a matter of time before the wrong individual ventures into that structure and could be harmed.
And one person, one child harmed is one too many.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and hold on. For the record, Sarpy County Courthouse has the recorded owner as PC Brent Village LLC out of St. Petersburg, Florida. St. Petersburg, Florida. Councilman Cook.
Mike, depending on how this goes for a vote, if someone would come to you, you know, you were hitting some 10 day, we'd be out about 3 weeks. If someone would come to you and say, you know, I can have someone, I got it set up, it's a go, they'll be out here in, let's say 10 days. How would that work with you? How would they work with you on that?
As far as
say if you were contacted tomorrow and say we'll have an engineer out there March 29th, how does that play into your process of contacting utilities and what you just outlined
That
with
fits
us.
very well into the schedule of when machinery will actually show up on site.
And if it was necessary and you made the decision, you know, you're saying in 3 weeks I could have equipment on site. If it's 4 weeks, does that cause you conflict or trouble?
I think the sooner the better.
I would
way,
agree.
too.
I would agree.
You know, it's been 10 months and it's just been one delay after another.
Okay, but there is time in there to get someone out there, take a look at it before something may occur.
I feel so that there's plenty of time, yes.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Welch.
Help me understand something, and this is maybe to all of you, including Mike. So this damage happened in May of 2019, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And weren't we given information at the last time that we voted on this that a lot of this notices were given to Brent Village and engineers were hired and all of these types of things had happened? I mean,
I think they're two separate issues. Yes, from the Main Street side, yes. And he didn't even speak tonight about whether or not they've actually retained an engineer. The lady who spoke, terrible names, I'm sorry.
Julie Jorgensen.
Julie Jorgensen, who spoke, that is a separate issue. So her retaining an engineer would be for the Brent Village side of it. So they're kind of two separate animals. But I don't know the update from Mr. Loudner whether or not they've actually retained an engineer because they said that they were going to at the last meeting. I don't know if that answers your question, but they're kind of separate. Her testimony tonight is different.
well, and I understand Ms. Jorgensen, she represents the apartment complex, which is totally different than what we talked about at a previous city council meeting. But it kind of feels like we've been down this road once, and then once we voted to condemn, it's like we're doing this again. And does the appeal process affect what we do tonight at all?
The appeal process does not affect anything that we're doing right now. There's no injunction, and we are absolutely able to proceed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. And public here.
Sorry, I
Go
just
ahead.
had two more things. I'm talking a
Oh,
lot.
go ahead.
Two more things. I know Mike and I had discussed with the upcoming weather events that there was also a concern, and I didn't know if Mike wanted to speak about the current condition of the building and the spring season and weather coming up and any of those concerns.
Yeah, the foundation itself has already suffered damage on the backside, which has weakened some of the other areas. So any strong event of another rainfall could cause the rest or more of the building to collapse in the rear. There's no guarantee of that, but a pretty good chance of it.
The other thing that I had is I know that Mike gave a few bids around to City Council tonight, and I didn't know if you wanted him to talk to you about that prior to exiting the City Council chambers.
Councilman Cook.
I guess my concern is what bid is going to be presented to us, and is it the lowest bid? And if not, why would we go with another bid?
It's within $88. They're $88 apart. The bid that I'd like to go with is $88 more than the other one. It was a very detailed bid. I had a geotechnical engineer from Thompson, Dreesen, and Dorner take a look at the property. He gave 4 suggestions to securing the bank after the removal of the building. We've indicated that we wanted to go with the dirt fill compaction. That's the most cost effective. And it was a very detailed bid and really followed the lines of what the geotechnical person had recommended.
Thank you.
Okay, public hearing is still open. Is there any council members that would like to bring up
Mr. Mayor,
either attorney? Yep.
can we bring back the Main Street attorney? Because I've got a couple of questions for him.
Okay, if can't think of the name. Don
Loudner.
Don Loudner. If Don's out there, could you come back in? And sorry for this procedure, but it's mandated.
Just to clarify, it's not mandated, it's a recommendation.
Oh, yeah, okay. It's highly recommended.
So I think we talked about at at our last council meeting that you were at, that you were in the process of hiring an engineer and some other professionals. Has that been done?
Correct. Yes, I spoke with my client. Yes, we've retained an engineer.
And what type of engineer have you retained?
The professional engineer, I believe his name was Tony Sipush.
Local?
I believe he is officed here.
Has he been to the property yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for Don? Any final statement you wanna, anything you wanna say that clear up?
Just briefly, I understand that there's been some questions regarding the engineer. Frankly, we're just trying to ask for time. I understand that you're looking at it from the sum total from the date of the accident to the date of the incident until now. All I can do is talk about what I've been involved in since we've gotten involved. We're trying to push this forward. We understand there's concerns regarding the city. You've mentioned again concerns regarding the structure itself. I know that more safety barriers were put there. I did reach out to the city attorney to try and get contact information from Mr. Christensen. I did attempt to communicate with him. I'd be happy to talk to him after this as well, to continue to address whatever situation or conditions we can. The problem is with the backside of the property, my client only has the 2 feet or so of whatever space there was before the retaining wall. Most effectively, as he had discussed last time, would be to be placing fencing or barriers on the adjacent property. So that was why he was asking the city to put the apartment property owner on notice so that the city could do that. We could work with the city to have more secure fencing or barriers on the high side of the hill, as it were. So with that, we're just asking that we get a few more, whatever period of time you guys deem urgent. I understand, since you've already voted on it, we're sort of locked in at this point. The appeal process that we filed with the Court of Appeals, if the Court of Appeals determines that the ruling of the district court was in error, but you've proceeded with knocking the building down, then my client is going to have not only substantial losses in the form of a lost building, but he'll have lost his significant piece of evidence regarding his claim against the apartment owner. And that's the main reason why we're asking we've put them on notice. They have property, they have the opportunity to investigate if you give them the time. So with that.
Councilwoman Welch.
Okay, so when did you put the apartment complex LLC on notice?
My firm got involved a few days before the last hearing I was here. I think it was early March or early February, I think.
Okay, and that's when the apartment complex was put on notice?
No, I believe, as Ms. Robbins had testified and as Mr. Christensen had testified, I believe an individual at the apartment complex, some employee, some representative of the apartment received notice and took some corrective steps.
I don't think Bree testified to that, did you?
I didn't testify to anything tonight, so I just want to clarify that. But February 5th is the letter that was sent from Mr. Loudner's office to Brent Village, which is the apartment complex behind. So it was February 5th of 2020 is when the apartment complex was put on notice.
Okay, and then when was the professional engineer hired?
That information I don't have here in front of me.
And the professional engineer has been to the site, and do you have a report from that engineer yet?
No.
And when do you expect the report from that engineer?
I did not speak with the engineer. I don't know the answer to your question. I believe my boss, Matt Sadoff, had spoken with him, but I don't know what the timetable is on that. I'd be happy to get that information provided to you.
Okay.
Can I clarify just one more point? Mr. Loudner said that he had contacted me for Mike Christensen's contact information, that I did not provide that to him. I just want to clarify there was an email sent. I do not have that date with me. And I do not believe it was in the same context of the barriers, which was the question. He had asked if he could speak with Mike Christensen, and I had informed him that since this is pending litigation in the district court, that he does not get to talk to my client directly because I'm the city attorney and that communication go through me. So it was in a different context than the barrier, which I think was the question that was posed to Mr. Loudner. Mr. Shannon is well aware of that contact information. It's on the city websites if it was for that purpose. But for litigation purposes, I did advise that he is not allowed to speak to Mike Christensen directly. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Councilman Preister.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Loudon, did you hear Mr. Christensen give the timeline while you were out in the other room?
I did.
Okay, so as I recall it, first, the utilities would have to be disconnected, and there's about a 10-day time period there. Then a permit has to be issued, as I recall, and the permit for the demolition, then an additional 10 days. So we're looking at it 3 weeks anyway, and if the engineer has already been hired, the engineer has apparently done the assessment, it seems 3 weeks is more than enough time to get an engineer when you've already had, or the apartment owners would have already had a month to line it up, and some of that time was even before coronavirus. So from your perspective, you or the apartment owners would have a full 3 weeks to get done whatever evidence, whatever you need to do. I don't think that the utility disconnection would impede anything on either side. That seems pretty straightforward, but I would ask your comment on that.
Just to clarify, I believe the question was whether or not the engineer had been on site, not whether or not the assessment had been completed. I can't speak to the status of his assessment, nor can I speak to the timeline of when he'll be done with his assessment. Obviously, this is a structure, a commercial structure of some size. It may involve multiple trips to the structure, assuming it's still standing. So I can't speak to whether or not it's done. And with regard to having an assessment completed within that I don't know that I can speak to how, if the assessment that we are working on obtaining is the same investigation or would encompass the same information that the apartment owner or the insurance carrier for the apartment owner is looking to investigate. I believe it's apples and oranges potentially. With regard to timetables, I think it would be asking quite a bit to assume that everything could be completed in a timely manner. As I understand it, we're not even certain officially that the neighboring property owner insurance carrier has actually retained an engineer. I believe there was testimony regarding efforts, but I can't say with certainty that has been done or that it could be done in whatever time frame Mr. Christensen was putting forth.
Sure, and I realize you can't speak for another party, so I also appreciate the clarification that an engineer has been on site, but not necessarily anything been done or completed, and you weren't saying whether it was or wasn't, you just couldn't speak to that. I hope you can appreciate also the fact that rains are no longer a half inch or an inch, that normal rains these days can be like that one. They can be 3 inches, they can be 5 inches, and we're about to go into April, which is normally the rainy season. We're going to be in April and in the normal, whatever that is these days, rainy season for this area. We get a 3 or a 5 inch rain on that property with no protection, no barrier as it exists, even the retaining wall partially compromised, and we're going to have an even more serious problem. And you're asking us to assume that liability so you can have a little more time? That's not a question. That's a comment that concerns me because I don't want anybody in harm's way when we're going into the rainy season. So my concluding comment is, please request if you would also sign in, because I'm not sure you did earlier.
I did.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions for Don? Okay, I'll remind everybody the public hearing is still open, so if there's anybody else in the audience that would like to speak, please come to the podium.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for Bree.
Okay.
So the Julie Jorgensen, is that?
Yes.
She's representing not the insurance company, but the actual apartment complex owners, is that correct?
I think you'd have to clarify that with her. to answer that because there's multiple different layers and representation when you're talking about that. So I would ask for Julie to come in and answer that question.
You want that question answered?
Sure.
Julie, come on up.
Just for clarification, you're representing the apartment complex owners, not the insurance company, correct?
So the way insurance defense works, if you were sued or somebody said they were going to make a claim against you, your insurance company would retain me to defend you. So that is what this looks like. This would be, the insurance company would retain me to defend any potential suit, investigate.
But who do you represent right now?
Well, we always represent the insured, so that would be
The apartment
property
complex.
owners of the apartment complex. Correct.
Okay.
We actually do things for new associates on the tripartite relationship. It is a little complicated. Yeah.
And that's why I wanted her to answer that because there's a lot of different layers.
Any questions for Julie? Public hearing is still open. If anybody is out there that would like to talk, please come forward. Seeing nobody come forward, I will close the public hearing. And we started with a motion from Preister, seconded by Cook, to carry out the condemnation. Are there any further discussion or amendments or anything from the council?
I have a discussion. The recommendation from Mike Christensen, the agenda item 16E is to accept the proposal in order to carry out the condemnation order to demolish. And the proposal that is recommended by Mike Christensen is the HIMES, HEIMES core proposal that is in front of you. And so I believe that that would be the one that we would be voting on unless there's an amendment to change it to a different proposal.
Councilman Preister.
Thank you, Mayor. And I would just clarify that that particular proposal was what I considered in the motion. So that would be accurate for me.
Okay.
Okay, so no further comments, questions, amendments? Seeing none, I will call for a vote.
All voted yes.
Are you okay with this? Sure.
Do you have Councilman Shannon come back in? I think he's, here he comes. Yep. All right, item 17, administrative reports. We're revising that process, but I would like to give the public and the council an update from our Emergency Operations Center and have Mark Albert come in.
Evening. Well, just to start off with the kind of the breaking thing there at the very beginning, you had mentioned to reference the new case in Sorpy. Did confirm at this time that that's not in Bellevue. Be inappropriate to probably discuss it beyond that. I'm sure that that's not being discussed at the moment for reasons that other community probably is getting their things together. And as we are going through this process, what I would consider just gross amounts of inaccurate information that is consuming the public, I don't want to attribute to that in any way at all. So that's where we're at. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of what we've been doing with this from the very beginning, the first call I made to the Sarpy County Health Department was back in January, reference this incident or this event was happening in China, and it was just arriving here. Just started doing this at that point, probably a couple, 3 weeks. So, and they were very much watching it from afar as well. It's on our radar. Those type of things are. February, we started pushing the get your flu shot, wash your hands, social distance, those common sense kind of things. And we're kind of really are still at that phase here. We're kind of teetering on, just so you understand, right now it's that phase of where we have cases here in our immediate area, Douglas County. We have one in Cass, another one somewhere else in Sarpy at the moment. But where this kind of changes gears a little bit for us is when it becomes a community spread event. And I'm not sure people completely understand that, but that's when this really would thrust into the next level of concern, the next progression of it. We're not there yet, but we're teetering on it, and we need to be prepared for that in the event that it happens, and we are. Super confident in where we're at today as a city in handling this. One good thing about this role in our strategy is this is not our first rodeo when it comes to issues. A lot of the people that are in place, myself included, we're here for the 2011 flood, 2017 tornadoes, 2019 flood, and here we are with this. And although this isn't a flood or a tornado, a lot of the same players, to include the health department, that's those same relationships, that's those same stakeholders. And so this ball has been put in motion on our end and working through this and navigating it. And I'm very confident in where we're at with it and where we sit today. Serious, definitely a serious situation, but probably my biggest concern, or the thing I would really like to convey to you and just the general public, is this is not a time to panic. We need to calm down, and we'll get through this. We will. We'll get through this. And I'm not concerned about that. So if you guys have specific questions for me that you might have concerns about or things that we're doing, I'm more than happy to answer them, but that's kind of where we're at today.
Councilman Pricer.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for that update. Could you just enlighten the public who may be watching this about the process? You talked about a team, who might be on that team, and when you might be meeting, or I would agree, there's never a time to panic, period, anyway.
No.
Cool heads need to prevail, and I think you have a team of cool heads with, as you said, experience, who have expertise in many areas. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about who's on the team and how that team is operating.
Yeah, so when we actually activate our Emergency Operations Center, you're always going to have, in this case, myself, Mr. Risso's in the room, Mayor Hike is present as well, Police Chief, Fire Chief, Public Works Director, Finance is involved as well. We essentially break out the National Incident Management System, which has all types of tenants. All of those main players are involved. Risk management, legal has been there along the way. We had initial meetings a while back, which were not nearly as in-depth, more of an overview kind of thing, but now as it has ramped up to where we're at, we're meeting very regularly with that group of people. And one of the main things we tried to do today, Councilman Pricer, was establish a way to do it like you are here, to where we can do it electronically in like a go-to-meeting type setting, so that we're not cramming all of our main players in our Emergency Operations Center into a small room, so that we can maintain our own distance like you are here tonight. And we got that accomplished, so we'll be able to do that. I would also add that we've had 2 meetings here recently with our neighbors as well, which was good from a uniformity and just working with our partners. So we had Papillion, La Vista, Gretna, Sarpy County, Springfield, the Sarpy County Health Department, and then the base caught up with us a little bit later. And we were all on a joint meeting at the same time, discussing these issues, what they were dealing with, what we were dealing with. So this has been a very much a team effort, and working through was clearly extraordinary times. There's never been a situation like this that has happened in our lifetime where we have reached this extent of cancellations, postponements, having a meeting like this. So I would reiterate that I feel very confident about where we're at with it.
Good. I appreciate that update. I would just add that in addition to all the people you mentioned, we certainly are looking at, from the president down, the governor, the mayors, obviously, of those cities, but all of our levels of government are all coordinating and working together on it as well. And I thank you. You reached out to me, and as council president, offered to keep me informed, and I said that I would keep the rest of the council briefed as to those things. So I assumed that responsibility as well, so that we, as the representatives who may be meeting with folks, have some updated information to give out that may be coming through your task force.
To speak to that just a little bit, it was on March 11th. Actually, Legal and I sat through a phone conference with White House staff, if you will, key cabinet members. They went through each one of those, basically identifying resources and things of that nature. So that was the federal government reaching out to us. There were hundreds of other municipalities or whatnot on the line listening to that information. We watched the governor's press conference last week as a staff together, and then basically took that information and started making our own list of stuff that we needed to do and things of that nature. So there are a lot of things going on behind the scenes. Very talented, hardworking people dedicated to serving this community. They're on this. And again, I feel good about it.
And it's a good time to mention Bellevue Strong. We have faced worse. This is serious, but if we keep the numbers down and don't spread it, it's manageable. It doesn't overwhelm our hospitals or our medical people. It doesn't expose or overextend our fire, our police, all of our resources. And Bellevue Strong will get through it, and we'll be the better community for it.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Councilman Burns?
So my question is, so right now we are not in the whole community spread right now. We're just focusing on social distancing, washing your hands, and taking those preventative measures. And my question is, and I don't want to panic anybody, but what will the city do if we move into that phase of community spread? Am I using that terminology correct? Because I don't want to misspeak either.
You
are. What does that look like? And I don't, maybe if there's a breakdown, if you can discuss that.
Yeah, so when we met with the health department with our AOC, probably 10 days, 2 weeks, it's been kind of a blur for me when it all came together. That was the magic question that I was trying to get some clarification onto. When does this like progress into a next like phase, if you will? And it really did kind of come down to a community spread conversation. It's like, that's when this has like leaped into a different category, if you will. And we are teetering on that right now. But just because it would get there, again, that's not the sky is falling moment. It's just that it's progressed to that next level. We would quite honestly, Mr. Burns, rely heavily on the health department, the CDC, for guidance and recommendations on what it is that they would propose. We would take that under advisement, and then we would act on it. It would basically get to probably even more restrictions, if you can imagine that. And again, as disruptive as this is, the strategy behind it is that we don't want to see this progression, which it is still progressing, right? It hasn't plateaued off really, and we're trying to prevent it from having a giant spike. If there's a giant spike, that creates tremendous pressure on our healthcare system, our first responders. And so as disruptive as it is, that's really the strategy that's in place, trying to just hold it back and just have it progress gradually as opposed to as opposed to a giant spike, if that makes sense.
More of a bell curve, not a peak.
Yes.
Okay.
We could talk to the World Health also has guidelines, protocols. We're actually ahead of that curve with things that our state has implemented that we are following. So we're literally in a stage 4, almost 5, even though reality still leaves us in a 3. So we're ahead of trying to flatten that bell curve. So some of the things that have already been implemented are ahead of the process to help flatten that quickly.
And I think the strategy behind that, whether people could agree or disagree, but I think the strategy behind that is you can see on the coast, state of Washington is having big problems because it got into the seniors, and the seniors are the most vulnerable people from my perspective. And so that's why that one has such a bigger casualty rate. But they're having larger problems with it in these denser populations. And as it moves, that's why I think that we are trying to get way ahead of this so that we can continue to have that be very subtle as opposed to the spike I spoke of, if that makes sense.
It does. I do want to know, so when we are saying get way ahead of this, can you guys explain that if you can? So when you're talking about, we might be in stage 3, but we're kind of doing preparations for if we were in stage 4, what does that mean besides washing our hands and social distancing? So what are those preparations?
A simple
and
one
what
is
do
what
you
the
mean?
governor came out with last night was to limit social events to 10.
Right.
So in stage 3, you're not at 10. At stage 5, you're at 10. So that's flattening that bell curve. They want to get ahead of that. So if we were at 250, then we went 250 was the recommended, which was between 3 and 4. 10 is at the severe end of it. So we're ahead of that portion of it. So there's pieces of that puzzle that we're going to stay with. And the idea is that it flattens the curve. And that's literally what we have to ask when we talk about don't panic, is the public has to work with us on this from a voluntary perception too, that they gauge if it takes us 2 to 3 weeks to get through this and we're ahead of that curve, more power to us. We just don't know where this is going to end, Mr. Burns.
Our population is very transient, and it's not about Bellevue changing that curve. It's about the region. It's about the national level changing that curve. So a lot of that instruction is going to come down from the governor, and he's going to be getting his instruction from somebody else. And I think it's our job to pay attention to the advice we're getting from them and make adjustments. But if Bellevue, if our sister cities don't do the same thing we're doing, it's not doing this area any good. So it's a regional effort, and we got to work together on it.
Bree?
Yeah, I was just going to add that we, like Mark said, we are working behind the scenes with a collective team to stay on top of this and get ahead of it. And we're having the conversations of, well, what if it gets to community spread? What does that look like for us? What does that look like for our employees, our community? And we're not in a position to talk about all those things right now, but we are working on that. We're not in a position where we're waiting for it to happen and then deciding what we're going to do. So the team, and we have Mark Albert in place, and he's doing a great job in trying to be proactive and look at, what if we get to this point, so that if we get to that point, all of those steps are in place. And as those things are, finalized behind the scenes, we will be pushing them out and having those conversations. But we are working diligently on all of that in case that does happen. And some of that will come with the governor as well, depending on what governor's issues as mandates or orders versus recommendations. And so Mark is keeping a close eye on that, as are all of us. And so that would obviously be in play with whatever we decide to do as well.
And our biggest enemy right now is misinformation, false reporting. So there's a lot of rumors and a lot of innuendos that are out there that there was comments that we're not commenting publicly. We are, but we're commenting to what is accurate and what actions people should take. So as Friday, we were in the wash your hands mode. And then as the weekend went, things developed, and we were responsive over the weekend. We had meetings with Team Offutt on Sunday to see what they were doing and how that amends with us. And by Monday, this thing was so fluid and so evolving, different things went into place. But what is communicated to the public is when we feel it's the right things without misinformation. The other thing is that we're not in the channels of innuendos on Facebook and things. These are going out into, so like we had on our website, we had information up, we had it on our city page on Facebook. It may not get out and populated. When you get in some of these other sites, the misinformation that goes on some of these other pages does no good for the public message because it warps it. So we're keeping it in those channels between the press, our website, our page, and trying to ensure that the most accurate information, and to be responsible to our public to protect their safety as well as our employees, that they get the right information. So there's days, it's like from Friday to Saturday, we're not going to keep repeating, wash your hands. That message was out there, wash your hands. I mean, some of the simple things, if you're sick, stay home. We can't keep repeating that. And that's already out in a lot of other different channels. So it's keeping it in the channel.
Fresh and the latest information.
Yep. Stay in our lanes.
Councilwoman Welch?
So a couple things. It sounds like we're being proactive versus reactive on all of this, correct? So in addition to what Mr. Risto said, where would the public go to get correct information? Because every location you go to gives you way different information and it's pretty confusing out there. Is it Bellevue.net?
I would go to the CD, and this is on our website, the links are there, but the CDC or Sarpy Cass Health Department. And that's who we're in contact with daily, a couple times today. Spoke to him 3 or 4 times today, trying to run something down to verify, confirm. In regards to the misinformation, I probably spent 4 hours of my day today running down a rabbit hole, trying to confirm or disconfirm information. Super frustrating, very time consuming. So to answer your question, Sarpy Cass Health Department or the CDC.
And both of those could be updated several times a day with new information. They're not going to repeat the old information because that's already gone out there, but it's being updated with new information, and that's going to be the most current information for our area, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
And that information gets changed consistently during the day, so you'd have to check it 2 or 3 times a day if you want to stay up on it. And all those links are on Bellevue.net, so we have some general information, and then the links are attached as well.
Mr. Cook?
I didn't hear what the mayor just said. On our website, are there the buttons, the links to hit Sarpy Cass or the CDC? I mean,
I believe so,
to make
yes.
it very simple for
Yes.
people.
It should be right there.
It's up on the top of the page.
Okay.
And between Sarpy Health and CDC, they're going to tell you what steps you should take. So if you feel that that condition is worsening for you, what to do from your own doctor, the hospital. So all that information will direct the public as to what steps they should take to protect themselves and their family.
All right, thank you, Mark, and you're doing an awesome job. We're glad to have you there, and I want to thank the entire city because I know you guys are just living with this every day, all day long, and you take it home at night and you think about it while you're trying to sleep, and you get back up and you start working on it again. So it's consuming our time, and I just want to know that just want you to know this community appreciates that.
Thank you.
Councilman Pricer.
In addition to yours, Mayor, I want to thank all of our staff because everybody working for the city has to do their regular job and keep the city running, whatever that capacity is. But in addition, they have a full-time job just dealing with this issue. And so everybody is on double time and everybody is overloaded. I appreciate the mayor says we are, but it's the day-to-day work of all the staff in every one of the positions throughout the city who are really dealing with this. So we appreciate the good leadership from the mayor, from the administrator, from you, Mark, from all of our staff, and to all the citizens who are caught in this and hoping for the best. The best will eventually get here because there's a great team making it better. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. No closed session this evening, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Shannon, second by Preister. Please vote.
All voted yes.
Well, they gotta come clean the desk off now. Everybody's gotta come clean the desk off now.